Hey guys, welcome. Hey Jack, hey Anthony. Can you hear me?
You froze
Yes.
there though.
Yeah.
Oh, oh boy. Well, hopefully I don't freeze. But as you know, I am in Bali, Indonesia. I've been here for about a week now. Got about 3 weeks left. It is an interesting country. Have you guys, either of you guys been?
I've
No,
never been to
never
Bali
been.
now.
No. Been surfing yet?
So, no, I haven't. But I'm gonna go to a beach. Over around Uluwatu is kind of a good break apparently, but the primary mode of transport here is a scooter. The roads are extremely narrow, and it's like you're in an F1 race. I'm in Ubud now, coming from Menjui, and it's a 50-minute drive, so 50 minutes. And it was like I was in an F1 race for the entire time. It is absolutely maniacal. I've never experienced anything like it. So, beautiful country, friendly people. The food is fantastic. Whether you're eating local cuisine or you're eating, stuff that the locals make, but is more catered towards, like a Mexican type dish, or a Japanese dish or anything like that. It's all very well prepared, and quite enjoyable, and very affordable. That's for sure. But yeah, it's good. What's happening?
You're you're gonna get fat over there, bud.
Nope, nope.
I just
No, I'm
lost
not.
Todd.
You back in the
Nope.
gym yet or what?
No, I'm not.
No?
I'm still healing that neck. I don't know if Jack told you, Anthony, but I crashed water skiing pretty hard early in the year, and I pinched a nerve in my neck, which refers down to my arm.
Oh,
So um, I haven't been able to lift at all. I'm going on 12 weeks, but I finally, just in the past, call it 10 days, I have full grip now. Um, which I wasn't able to grip anything. Like I would start to press, and this right arm would just die. So anyways, well,
yeah.
I'm doing the physio, man. That's
So
it. That's all I
I
can do.
yeah, so I've had herniated disc in my neck, so I've dealt with that. It's
Oh,
horrific.
yeah,
What worked great for me, I have a little traction unit
yep,
that I'd use, and a little bit of extension in my neck. And then
yep.
the other thing that I did was I would ice my neck in the evenings, and that seemed to work the best,
Nice.
just to reduce that inflammation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely doing traction every day, and then I've got a pretty solid physio
Good.
that's got me on a decent regime to get it all good. But I'm using anything I can do to maintain the muscle tone in my pec. I've got a good TENS machine here, the Power Dot. You heard it here first, Power Dot. You can sponsor our podcast. But it's a fantastic machine. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's good. But
Yeah.
what's on the agenda today, Jack? What are we talking about?
We're talking about my favorite topic, coffee.
Nice,
I need
I've
another
got
one
nice.
mine.
actually. Yeah, I feel jealous. I need another one. But yeah, we're going to talk about study came out recently that compared drinking coffee to just straight caffeine, like caffeine pill or something. And it turns out there's a pretty interesting difference between the two. So maybe I'll turn it over to Dr. C and he can tell us about it.
Sure.
Sure,
So
let's
yeah,
go.
this was an interesting study you sent me, Jack, and it was looking at the conduction in the brain with caffeine versus coffee, which also had caffeine in it. And what it showed was that the areas that we normally expect to kind of light up will in regards to getting us alert and getting us ready to do things. What it did show was that the coffee portion, but not the caffeine portion, increased working memory and kind of that goal directed behavior. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I wish I would have known all of the benefits of coffee when I was in medical school and residency because I did not drink any in medical school and residency because I thought it was so bad because of all the stuff, that I read early on. I wasn't looking at clinical studies. It was just kind of the public, view of caffeine and everything else. But now that I know how beneficial it is, it's like, man, I wish I would I wish I would have drank it when I was in medical school and
So,
residency.
so to distill that
Yeah,
down,
there's
then,
so many. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying. So to distill that down, so just caffeine on its own isn't going to give you the lift. There's more to it around the whole ritual with coffee, the smell, the taste, the
Absolutely.
uh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So all of the guys that
Yeah,
are popping caffeine pre-performance and stuff like that might not be seeing the same kind of benefits or
yeah, absolutely. So, coffee is loaded with a bunch of incredible ingredients. It's a mixture of antioxidants and minerals and vitamins, and this all benefits us in a way that, again, I never knew about um, during medical school or even residency for that matter, because I didn't, one, I didn't have time to look at studies.
yeah.
I was so busy, but there's incredible substances that are in coffee that protect the brain, that are antioxidants, that are anti-inflammatories, and these are just great things to help promote brain health, to promote that antioxidant capacity, and to cognitively keep us on track as we get older.
What I thought was interesting was like caffeine alone is it's going to get you jacked up and give you like that boost. It's going to give you that like thrust of energy, and also probably jitters, but it won't give you that extra like thinking power was what I took away from what I read. So like, yeah, caffeine will get you jacked up, but the coffee experience is what's going to help you perform better mentally.
Right, exactly. I agree with you 100%. I mean, caffeine has its benefits. There's no doubt about that. And what caffeine does is there's a neurohormone in our brain called adenosine, and adenosine has a tendency to kind of slow stuff down. And what caffeine does is it binds to that adenosine receptor, and it makes the adenosine not able to bind to it. And so what happens is instead of everything slowing down, it actually speeds up the neurons and speeds up the firing. And then that process can also trigger your adrenal glands to kick up some of the adrenaline hormones, like epinephrine and also dopamine. And so that's that kind of, why some people feel really, really jittery. And as we spoke previously, some people can metabolize caffeine really, really quickly in their body, and they can drink a lot of coffee and don't have problems. Other people who are very slow metabolizers, just a little bit of caffeine makes them feel jittery. And if they have anything past like 10 o'clock in the morning, they're not going to sleep that evening.
Yeah, I can have a coffee and then have a nap. Like it just relaxes me. So I
I'm the same way.
I
Thank
am not.
goodness.
I am that opposite guy. I don't. I have the amount that I take in the morning, and it's usually pretty large cup. But after 10 o'clock, that's it. I'm not having any coffee after that. But, is there is there
slow
you know
metabolizer.
yeah, yeah, in so many ways. Is there a recommended dosage or anything like that? Or is it just like we're talking about here, where it's, hey, you kind of do what works for you individually, and your own metabolism?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would tell you that, if we're looking at clinical studies, there was a study that looked at like 670 men over like a 10-year time period that were drinking anywhere from 2 to 3 cups of coffee per day. And it showed improvement in cognitive function and like less decline as they got older. And so I think where most of the studies are kind of lying is somewhere between 300 and under 400 milligrams of caffeine per day. And that would be in someone that is a normal or a fast metabolizer. If you're a slow metabolizer, I don't think you need that much. And I really think it's not the caffeine that's the issue. I think it's the other antioxidants that are in coffee. So there are several different antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds. The most that's in coffee is chlorogenic acid, which is this incredible anti-inflammatory antioxidant, and it increases the antioxidant capacity in the brain. It's been shown to help reduce neuronal damage. Caffeic acid and chlorogenic acid are great anti-inflammatories. There's also something called the diterpenes, which is, if you ever made a cup of coffee and you see a little bit of oil in it, and again, depending on how you make it, but the diterpenes are also very, very beneficial antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. And as you know, as we increase those antioxidants in our body, it helps to reduce the damage that occurs at that level of the cell and the brain and the mitochondria, and it keeps the cells and the neurons functioning at a high level. The last antioxidant that's been studied is called trigonelin, and that also has very protective anti-inflammatory effects, and it's been shown to protect the beta amyloid, which um, is one of the main things that gets affected in Alzheimer's disease. So coffee has these
Interesting.
incredible benefits outside of caffeine, and so that's where the benefits come in, is that there's incredible antioxidants in coffee and minerals and vitamins. It's just the caffeine that limits the ability for us to take and get more of that into our systems.
Interesting.
So we
Interesting.
we know, like through the process of developing Pure Neuro, we know that one of the biggest factors affecting brain health is the mitochondria in the brain, and that every neuron has millions of mitochondria because they're so energy dependent. Uh, you and I talked about this before. All those antioxidants that you're getting through coffee and other foods and whatever else you're taking, those are protecting the mitochondria as well, aren't they?
Correct. Yeah, and that's the core of our health, is really how healthy are your mitochondria as we get older. And after the age of 30, we'll see anywhere from an 8 to 10% drop in mitochondrial number in our bodies. And the brain and heart being the two organs that have the highest number, we'll see those effects pretty dramatically, especially in the brain, because mitochondria is producing energy, and our
Hmm.
neurons are all energy based. It's electricity essentially. And so if we get just even a small drop off of the capability of those cells to produce that energy, that cognitive function slows down. You get a little more forgetful, and you think, oh, I'm just getting older. That's kind of the norm.
And I think that's what we've all been conditioned to accept instead of trying to do
Right.
something about it. Um,
Yeah.
what are there any measures? Like, can you measure somebody's mitochondrial health in any way? Like, do you have tests for that?
It's not easy. There are tests that can that kind of look at it, but it's not an easy thing to do right now. But there are some things, and they're expensive, and they're in the academia world in regards to doing it. It's not like I can go down to the local lab and say, hey, let's go ahead and get a mitochondrial activity test for my
Hmm.
system. But I think that's coming. I think it's going to be probably more in the next couple of years, because there's such a focus on aging. There's such a focus on mitochondrial health, that I think that we're going to start seeing some of that, in the near future.
So currently, are you just measuring that indirectly through symptoms, through other kinds of tests? Like how how do you
Mhm.
come to the conclusion when you're with a patient that this could be the problem that they're dealing with?
Um, so it's simple. There's at the end of the day, every single disease that we have, so every neural disease you can think of, from dementia to ADD, um, metabolic disorders like diabetes, heart disease, any disease at the core of its process is some form of mitochondrial dysfunction, even cancers. So it's not hard to say, well, you've got some mitochondrial dysfunction if you feel tired, if you're having fatigue, if you're inflamed, because we know that affects all of that.
Hmm.
So I don't necessarily need to have a test to say, oh, we need to do this. I know that if I can get someone's health of their cells improved through improving mitochondrial function, through everything from diet and exercise, to, um, you know, nutrients that will promote new healthy mitochondria, and reducing things like inflammation in the body, then I know that I'm on the right path. And clinically, I know it because people feel better, right? So I don't necessarily need a test, because I know at the core that's, the health of our cells is the most important thing. And if we focus on how to improve that, it makes life just much better, with the quality of our life, our energy, the ability to do the things that we want to do as we get older, becomes much easier because we've got these healthy, vibrant mitochondria in our cells.
And coffee helps with that.
Yes, it does.
Did
Yes, it
you
does.
see there was a study, I want to say like a couple months ago, probably, and it kind of backs up what you said about how you make coffee and like seeing the oils and whatnot in it. I think they said espresso and French press were the two best ways to make coffee, and I assume it's because you get more of those oils and those antioxidant acids that you were talking about. Is that what
Yeah.
you think
So
too? Yeah.
Yeah, so the espresso and the French press, you're going to see more oil in there, and the oils are really the diterpenes,
Okay.
and again, they have an anti-inflammatory kind of antioxidant effect in the cells. The only kind of caveat with the diterpenes in the oil is that the studies have shown that the LDL cholesterol increases a little bit, which is interesting because LDL typically only comes from animal products, right? And coffee beans are plants, so why would it increase the LDL? There's not an increased risk in cardiovascular disease in regards to coffee drinkers. So I think the anti-inflammatory effects of the diterpenes, the chlorogenic acid, the trigonelline, all of those things will reduce any cardiac issues. But it was interesting to see that the LDL creeped up a little bit, and I'm not really sure why that occurred, but I drink espressos every day, so maybe that's why my LDLs are a little high.
Guess they're all
Well, I mean,
fancy.
this is probably a completely different conversation in another podcast, but isn't the whole association between cholesterol and heart disease a little bit overblown anyway?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've done for over 25 years in my practice is I do advanced lipid panels, and the advanced lipid panels really give me a great idea of if you're at risk or not. So it helps me risk stratify my patients to let me know how aggressive I need to be at their treatment. Treatment is everything from kind of what you're eating, your exercising, your sleep, to natural things, and then in rare instances, medications. And so one of the things that we know about the cholesterol panels, it's really the inflammation that's inside the cholesterol or inside the arteries, or in your body, that are the big triggers for cardiovascular events. So a heart attack and a stroke only occurs when there's an inflammatory process. And we can measure those inflammatory processes. For instance, inside the LDL, there's a marker called oxidized LDL or ox-LDL. We can measure the inflammation inside the artery specific for the artery called Lp(PLA2), which is an artery inflammation marker. Or we can say, hey, what about general inflammation in the body? And that's the high sensitive C-reactive protein. So those are three of the inflammatory markers that I'll look at, for instance, in patients that come in. And if those are low and their LDL cholesterol is a little bit high, it doesn't really bother me. I'm okay with that. I've got patients in their 90s that have never had a heart attack or stroke that have high LDL cholesterols, but their inflammation markers are really, really low.
Okay, that's actually pretty interesting because I'm not a big believer in cholesterol being a big risk factor, but it's interesting to know that you
Yeah.
need to also correlate that with inflammatory markers.
Well,
Cool.
it's 100%. And the things that drive inflammation is, so there are bad fats, like, the trans fats, which are basically, if you heat up saturated fats, like if you overcook a
Mm.
steak, for instance, that fat that's on there will turn into a trans fat. And a lot of our margarines were based on that. And those are just bad inflammatory fats, which aren't good for the system. Sugar is the other thing that drives a lot of inflammation in the system. And so what happens is if you eat a lot of carbohydrates and your body doesn't process them quick enough because of X, Y, or Z reasons, insulin resistance, being overweight, um, what happens is that the sugar attaches to proteins all throughout your system, and those proteins turn into these pro-inflammatory molecules. And one of the markers that we measure in our diabetic patients, and I actually measure this in all of my patients, is a marker called hemoglobin A1C, which is the hemoglobin molecule which carries oxygen. It's how much sugar is attached to it. So it's kind of like
Hmm.
a marker of internal sugarization, but it's a
Right.
3-month average sugar. So if I see those numbers really, really high, I know that's going to be the trigger for the inflammation that's going to cause the heart disease, that's going to promote that. So
Okay.
that's where diet comes in as a main focus, because if you don't correct that aspect, you're never going to get your cholesterol numbers under wraps.
Okay.
You
So,
know,
so it's not so much sugar. It's not so much sugar as it's like how if you as an individual are eating more sugar than your body's able to quickly metabolize.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So if you're
So
very active,
yeah.
you can eat a fair amount of carbohydrates. So sugars are carbohydrates and starches. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then we'll classify them as simple or complex. But if you process your carbohydrates great and you don't have insulin resistance, then it really doesn't matter. You're not going to have issues with lipid inflammation because you're processing them. The sugars aren't hanging out in your bloodstream for hours, attaching to things that shouldn't be attaching to. They're going right
Mhm.
into your muscles to be stored as glycogen for fuel the next time you go do your run or you go walk.
Right. Sorry, Todd, I talked over you there.
no, that's okay because I'm on the Indonesian delay here, so I'll never be able to inject at the right time. But you know, ultimately, we started the conversation with coffee, its benefits, the mitochondrial impact of you know the promoting healthy mitochondria in the system, and obviously we naturally digress to a couple other topics, but I think there's a lot of information packed into this show. So I don't know how much further you guys wanted to continue to talk or save a couple of these little gems for the next time we get together here, but I'll let you make that call, Jack.
Well, I just a couple other things about coffee. I mean, I think that, when you're looking for coffee, I think getting, a good organic, single source coffee is the best thing. And then how that coffee's processed and roasted will determine those antioxidants. So like when they decaffeinate coffee, they've shown that both decaffeinated and caffeine has those cognitive, those kind of neural and uh, low inflammation effects on the brain, but if you process something too much, then it's not going to be as good. The other thing is all the other stuff that people put in their coffees. Like when I look at what my staff does with their coffee, I mean I have my coffee pretty much black. I may put um, some MCT in it, or I may put some ketones in it in the morning time. But when I look at my staff and what they get, I mean, it's loaded with sugar and cream, and I'm like, yeah, that's not healthy, because you're loading your system up with simple carbohydrates that absolutely can affect those anti-inflammatory effects and what your body really really needs.
Cool.
Yeah, the other thing when you're talking about organic versus conventional coffee is mold is a problem with
Yes,
conventional coffee, isn't it? And
yes, absolutely.
generally, organic has a lot lower chance of having those mold problems.
Yes, absolutely. And when I first heard about this, it was probably about a decade ago. I didn't realize, I guess the United States doesn't really monitor that, but I think in Europe they do. I'm not sure about Canada. Um, but, and there's actually a coffee place in downtown Jacksonville. And spoke to one of my patients that actually worked there. And I said, I read about this and heard about this. Is it true? And he's like, absolutely. Coffee's got a lot of mold when they're roasting it. And so, the mycotoxins, which are derived from mold, and a lot of people can cause an inflammatory response or, an adverse response to their health. So, Yeah, I definitely believe in organic single source coffee just because of that. I don't want to put anything in my system that isn't clean that may affect my body's ability to run at a high level.
Cool. All
Yeah.
right. You guys got anything else before we sign off for this one?
No, that was good. That
All
was
right.
that was
Good talking
Yeah.
to you
a good
guys.
show.
Okay. Awesome.
First Power Up podcast.
Yeah,
I'm sure
there you
I'm
go.
sure we'll get better at this as we go.
We'll get powered up
Perfect.
from here.
Todd,
Okay,
have
well,
fun in Bali. Wish I was
thank
there.
you. Thank you.
All right. See you, boys.
See ya.
Take care. Bye bye.